call the meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Pat, will you please do roll call?
Okay. Karen?
Yes.
Dick?
Yes.
Jim?
Yeah.
Bob?
Yes.
Annette?
Yes. Okay, good afternoon. Welcome to the April 1st, 2025 meeting of the Bryan Board of Public Affairs. First on the agenda is to approve the minutes from the March 18th, 2025 meeting. Everyone has been presented with the meeting minutes. Are there any changes to the way they are written?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second?
Bob?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Annette?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Dick?
Yes.
Next on the agenda is a hearing of public concerns. Anyone present would like to come to the podium? Okay, moving on. Next on the agenda is a presentation of the water system improvement study. Derek?
So just a quick refresher, in October of '24, the board approved a water system improvement plan study with Jones and Henry. So over the past several months, we've worked closely with them. That study is now complete. Jake Meinerding from Jones and Henry is here tonight to present the study's findings and outline some options for the board to consider. Won't be requesting any action tonight, but would certainly encourage comments or discussion. So I'll give just a brief introduction of Jake and then we'll turn it over to him. Jake is a principal and director of water treatment for Jones and Henry Engineers, a firm specializing in water, wastewater, and stormwater infrastructure design. They have offices in Toledo, Cincinnati, Fort Wayne, Kalamazoo, and Carmel, Indiana. He holds a bachelor's degree in civil engineering from Ohio Northern and a master's degree in environmental engineering from the University of Cincinnati. Jake is a licensed professional engineer in 4 states, including Ohio, and holds an associate certification from the Design Build Institute of America. Jake has over 18 years of experience in planning, design, construction, and plant operations. He focuses on source water, conventional water treatment, softening systems, and chemical feed systems. So welcome, Jake, and I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, Derek, thanks for having me here.
Welcome, Jake.
To talk to you. Like Derek said, we kind of started looking at this study. Really, we started talking about it maybe a year and a half ago or so with Derek and Jimmy and Chad at the plant, and kind of the impetus for the study, which I think everybody has a copy of, and what I'm trying to do is kind of summarize the study today is, there were some issues at the plant with filters a couple years ago, some other issues maybe with some pumping at the plant, and before, Derek and you guys wanted to heavily invest in any improvements, I think the idea was, all right, let's take a look at the whole water system. Where do we really need to focus our money? What should we be spending our capital dollars on? We don't want to invest heavily in our water plant if it's not going to last much longer. Do we need to look to improve the plant, to expand it, to build a new plant? And let's take a look at this from a real high level. Let's look at the whole system before we dive too deep in any component or really kind of going down a rabbit hole in any options. Let's just look at from like the 40,000 foot level, try to get some ideas for how we need to maybe proceed forward and start making decisions for how we want to invest those dollars in the future. So that's kind of the basis for the study, and really what we're trying to get out of it is just, like I said, do the high level investigation of the current water system and start planning for improvements. We also did kind of an investigation into the existing water plant, looking at it from a structural, mechanical, plumbing, process equipment, electrical and controls aspect, just seeing, okay, what needs to be fixed now, what can last 5, 10, 20 years in the future, and just see if there's any water quality concerns to address, anything regulatory coming down the pipeline that may be addressed too. And then, we looked at some alternatives to replace equipment that needed to replace kind of immediately, and then started looking more into the future. So, like I said, we looked at the whole water system. Typically, when we do a study, we kind of follow it like a drop of water would go through an entire system. So from your source to your treatment plant, to your distribution system, and out to the customer's tap. So I'm sure you're all familiar with your system, but just a brief overview. You got your 2 well fields, the water plant, and then the entire distribution system itself, which includes 2 water towers. So the first component we looked at is the wells itself. So we've got the north and the south well field consisting of 6 wells with a theoretical capacity of about 6.39 million gallons per day. And I say theoretical because each well, if you just add them all up together, they add up to that 6.39. If you're going to turn them all at once, they're probably not going to pump that much. They're going to compete against each other for that water. So you probably don't have that much. But being where you're at, Bryan itself, pretty good location, pretty good groundwater source around us. You go east and south, not that far, and it's pretty scarce for groundwater. So you're in a pretty good source location. The issue with the wells, I see it in a lot of communities, is where they're located. Located right in the middle of the city. When I first started looking at the water system itself, big red flag to me. Being in the middle of the city can lead to potential spill contamination. You don't have the isolation radius Ohio EPA requires now when you install a well, and doing any major improvements on the wells in the future, Ohio EPA is probably not going to approve that. When I said major improvements, I'm talking about probably replacing the casing in the well itself, the pumps, some other kind of miscellaneous appurtenances with the well itself, probably good. But if you're doing a major rehab on the wells, Ohio EPA does not like for these wells to be located within the city and without a 300-foot isolation radius all the way around and between any other sanitary sources, between any other businesses, anything like that. So that's the concern with the wells itself. They're producing pretty good quality, pretty good production out of them. Really the only issues on the quality is the high iron and hardness levels. So we look at the water plant. This was the main crux of the study. This is where you're having the most issues. So that's where we spent the majority of the study on. The plant itself was rated for 5 MGD. I don't think the operators feel comfortable if you get to that capacity. Maybe 3.5 MGD was kind of what they're comfortable with. But currently, the capacity is really not much of an issue. You're producing on average about 1.3 million gallons per day now, with a max day of about 1.8 million gallons per day. Meeting all the national primary drinking water standards, so water quality is good. And the only issue on the finished waters itself is it's pretty hard. Most communities soften about 120 to 150 milligrams per liter of hardness, which is what Ohio EPA typically recommends for softened water itself, in that range. Like I said, we did a very thorough investigation of the plant. Our process engineers, structural, mechanical, electrical. We have a class 4 operator on staff who come through, did an operational assessment. And really kind of our take on the plant is very well maintained for a plant that's over 50 years old. Jimmy, Chad, and their staff should be commended for the work they're doing, keeping everything in operation as long as it has, and as well maintained as it has. But that equipment in there is just not designed to be 50 years old. You know, the heartbeat of your plant itself, the filters really have a life of about 30 to 40 years. And we've seen that with some of the recent issues on the filters. Failures in the inlet drains and some of the other steel, and that's really a cause for some major concern at this point. You know, we've looked at, you know, some Band-Aid fixes, but really those filters themselves are so old, there's not going to be kind of a permanent fix for them at this point. And then I know recently the Clearwell structural itself, dive team went in, did some evaluation on the clear wells. I know they found some cracking. I don't think we've got the final report back on that yet, but that's another area of concern on the plan. So we looked at recommendations of the plan and kind of things that we think need fixed now, and then we went kind of into the long-term strategies. So immediate need at the plant is rehabbing the filter, especially the one that just failed recently. And we looked at a couple different ways to do that, kind of come in, remove media, do some quick fixes, and put some new media back in it. It's kind of a Band-Aid fix. We looked at, I'll say, a more robust Band-Aid fix of kind of re-hauling the entire internals of the filter itself. Pretty costly. It's probably about $1 million to do one filter. And you'd still be left with the entire outer filter shell. So it wouldn't be a total new filter. It's just kind of a major rehab of a filter component itself. So I know that's kind of still up in the air as far as what the city wants to do with that filter rehab, but there are some options that are just kind of immediate need fixes. Now, we looked at some other components, structural, mechanical, electrical, and controls, and just kind of made a list and a report of areas we thought should be addressed within the next few years now, kind of at max 5 years from now. And we put together a list and came up with about $500,000 in fixes that should be done kind of at this point. Found several other things that we would recommend improving upon. Didn't necessarily put costs together, because if you're not going to, I guess, put significant investment into the plan, I don't think it makes sense to go through with these. And that's one, replacing the gaseous chlorine system with sodium hypochlorite. Sodium hypochlorite's bleach. It's how a lot of plants are disinfecting their water these days. You know, it used to be gas chlorine cost was here, and sodium hypochlorite was here. So everybody kind of stuck with gas. Well, those costs are kind of becoming pretty similar now. Issue with gas chlorine is it's dangerous to handle. It's dangerous if it's in a residential area. Highway PA does not like gaseous chlorine being used if there's residents in the area. A leak, you know, you're shutting down your plant, and you're really trying to contain that leak kind of immediately. There's also not a lot of redundancy in the plant. You know, you get one component go down, and kind of the whole plant's in flux a little bit. And then the gauging pumps and an aerator, it's all original equipment. So I'm talking 50-year-old equipment here, moving parts, and you know, that's like a cause for concern. So that's just kind of the immediate need repairs at the plant. We'll get kind of into the long-term discussion here in a minute. So we looked at it from a distribution system as well. Really the main issue is there's just a single entry point to the distribution system from the plant. It's difficult to assess. It's under your building. If there was a leak there, it'd be very difficult to fix. A lot of plants now have 2 entry points, so if one, there's an issue in that pipeline, they can shut that off and still keep producing water and send out to the system. 2 very well maintained elevated tanks. There's kind of a typical maintenance plan on that, so those are in good shape. And then, you know, you're continually replacing water mains, which is always good. And then really the only thing I'd say in the distribution system is a distribution system model does not exist. Most communities have a working model, that way when they make decisions in the future, replacing water mains, things like that, you know, we got a 4-inch main here, what size should we go to? Well, throw it in your model, it'll tell you, you know, should it be an 8, should it be a 10, 12, that'll give you an indication of how pressures and fire flows and things change. And really a distribution system model can be put together for a relatively reasonable cost, and it's something that the city can always come back to and work with in the future. So, long-term alternatives. Now these really focused on the water plant and the well fields itself. So anytime you're looking at a long-term alternative for a major plant rehab or a new plant, the first thing you're going to look at is regionalization. One, for 2 reasons. One, you can kind of combine sources with other utilities if possible. 2, it's where a lot of funding and grant money is at this point. Problem is, there's not really a large enough community around here for you to either pull water from or share a new plant or something with, so that it's just not feasible from a locational standpoint to do that. So kind of focused on the 2 main alternatives. 1, can we rehab the existing water plant? 2, can we construct a new water plant? So keep in mind, this is a pretty high level study at this point, so we just have boxes and things shown up here. You know, we don't have detailed drawings, we don't have, you know, detailed locations of equipment or anything like that. So one option we looked at to rehab the existing plant, and well, I guess the first option we looked at was, can we just replace the filters? And no, the way the building's set up, you really can't. The filters were set in there, and then the building was built around it. To remove the filters, you'd be removing your entire building and basically replacing the whole thing, which is not feasible at this point. So one option we looked at, your plant was set up to double in size when it was built. So we thought, all right, maybe we can keep the existing filter building online and put a new one right next to it where it was supposed to double in size originally. That would involve moving your existing lab and offices to a new building, which is, I got shown, that's not going to work, is it? Right here. So it'd be shown right here, we just put a new building with lab, offices, garages, whatever you may want to put in a kind of an administration area in the plant. We demo the existing labs, offices, and basically put your new treatment plant right next to it. And then all the options we looked at included softening equipment as well. So if we can put the new filter building here, we could put the new softening equipment in the existing filter building. Problem with this option is this foundation, the clear wall, does not look like it's in great shape at this point. There's a lot of cracking in it. I'm not sure it's feasible to put a new building over top of that structure at this point. So I'm not really a big fan of this option, but it was something we looked at. This option will also utilize the existing well field. It's one of the benefits to it. Use the existing well field at this point. The only problem, like I mentioned, the future of that well field may be in question. Anything new probably have to be at a new well field location in the future. So we looked at estimated costs, basically to just do these plant upgrades, and then we looked at estimated costs to add the well field with it. So you're looking $13 to $17 million. You know, it's a very high level estimate at this point. And along with the well field too. Okay, let me show you that first here. So when we looked at the new well field, there was a study completed in 2011 that identified this area for the potential new well field. It had some good yield, and there's a lot of area here to actually put the wells. I mentioned the 300-foot isolation radius earlier on the wells. So basically, these orange circles here, that's how much space you need now to install a new well. You need that much area around it with no other sanitary going through it, no other areas where you know, could be potential contamination from anything else. So it makes constructing a new well field somewhat difficult. Now, you just need a lot of area to do that. From this new well field, a new water transmission main would need to be constructed all the way through town, basically back to close to the near plant or connecting to the existing transmission main. So this is very costly. You're talking about whatever route you may go here, you're talking about a pretty good sized pipe all the way through town. If you're going to utilize the existing plant and then have to construct a new well field in the future. So this is very costly, which is where you get these you know, additional $8 to $11 million costs just for the well field itself. A lot of that accounts just in that transmission pipe. So the other option we looked at to rehab the plant was we would construct a new filter building on the site itself. And you can see very constricted as far as how much area there is to work with on site. This option would use the existing clear well and basically we would mimic what's in this building now into this building. The filters could look kind of any way you want. You wouldn't have to duplicate what you have now. You can kind of configure those to lots smaller vessels if you wanted to, so you don't have these giant beasts where you only have two. You could put several filters, get the same filtering capacity. So the filter building would be out here, and again, we would convert the existing filter building into a softening building. That's where your softening equipment would be. Again, initially you could utilize the existing well field, but again, we're thinking at some point you're going to need a new well field in the future. So for this option, another reason it's better than kind of option one, it's a little bit lower cost. You're not relying on the foundation of the clear well itself to put a building. The only problem with both of these options, you're still relying on a lot of this building, a lot of this infrastructure itself to get you through far into the future. So we talked about the new well field. So those are the options with the plant rehab. Is there any, kind of stop there, any questions on that portion itself? Yeah.
Go ahead. I'm trying to think what I want to.
Question. On the existing wells, was there a study done to show what the capabilities are currently today?
There's not.
There's not. So it's an estimate of what those current 6 wells can produce.
Estimated, it's based on each well is rated. This well is rated for this well is rated for that. So to put them all together combined, no, there was no study on that, and I don't think one has really been done recently, correct?
So it's based upon just historical information?
It's based upon what the pumps are rated for
Okay.
at this time.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
So, you said you're still waiting on one other study to come in, which would determine I guess, the health of the current well field, is that correct?
Health of the clear well, let me go back here. So a dive team went in, kind of a specialized dive team went in and did a study. They do pictures and evaluation of, basically the part that's underwater here. Just to kind of give you an idea of how well the clear well's doing. Just from the outside, you can tell there's a lot of visible cracks on the slab itself. But, this was done, I guess, 2 weeks ago, and we're still waiting on the final results.
Okay, so that's different than from the well field itself?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I guess another question I'd have is, you have this, for the study here, you have the new 6 wells out here possibly in the solar field area. And you had mentioned there has to be a radius around each well.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess my question would be, would we have to worry maybe about field runoff or anything like that, or the railroad tracks being right there and possibly a derailment or something?
So actually, looking at, everything that happened in eastern Ohio, talking to the Ohio EPA, they haven't really put any rules into place as far as isolation radiuses from railroads that are different than anything else. So that's not an issue I see at this time. There's so many communities that have railroads going through it, that would make it very difficult, I think, to actually find land to put in new wells.
And I guess let's say if we decide to move forward and move and all this, I'm assuming at that point it would be something that would be grandfathered in because nothing was in place at the time it was built.
Are you saying the solar field?
Yeah,
We've actually spaced this out where the solar field could remain as it is, and we get all the isolation we need. It may be possible that we can use the solar field area as part of that isolation radius. I don't see anything that's an issue with the solar field itself that would cause contamination with the well. But I guess just to play it safe for this study, we assumed we couldn't use any of that area.
Any issues getting underneath the tracks, permission from the railroad to go underneath the tracks?
Yeah, you need a railroad permit to go under the tracks. One thing we talked about
Could be
was-
difficult.
I know, yeah, they're funny sometimes, I know.
Oh, yeah.
They go bananas when we try to put electric line under.
Yeah, they did. They really did.
And it took 2 years in an act of Congress to get that fiber line moved for the new Amtrak
Yep.
station, so. I do want to note too, just so you're aware of our railroad uses throughout the community, we have about 60 to 70 trains. Many of them do carry hazardous material every
Yep.
day. So. just
We've
wanna
had
make-
derailments out
Yeah,
there.
I just want to make everyone aware that that is a possibility.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just like what happened in East Palestine, same thing. That would be the ideal place to put the new well fields,
Mhm.
but we're still vulnerable to a train.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this hasn't been decided on or anything, this was just based on the study.
Yeah.
right.
That was done in 2011, and you'll see at the end of my presentation, one of the things I'm going to recommend is an updated study be done for this, so, maybe if this area doesn't work out, is there another area that may instead?
And it may be just asking the community, we have to buy some land somewhere outside of the city that we can get that radius, right? That maybe we don't own already.
Correct.
Is surface contamination as much of a concern as, I don't know, what would
you call it? I mean, you mentioned about like a sanitary and stuff that you wanted to stay. That would obviously be in the ground. Is surface contamination treated any differently than?
Not really. To be honest with you, I guess it is treated a little different. There are ways to get around that sanitary line, get double
Well, that would,
wall. And
like say, that would be the only reason I would think they would take a different approach to being close to the railroad, you know, in
Oh,
case that would be,
yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I guess that's up to them.
Jake, on those rehab options, could you just talk about the timeframes as far as planning and
Yeah.
construction and completion of them?
So I think about either rehab option, and to be honest with you, there's not two. I mean, there's kind of two main ones we're considering at this point, but there's a lot of other variations of these you could look at. But probably anything for a rehab option. If you told me today, hey, we need to start the process to rehab the plant with one of these options, it'd probably be 5 years before it could be online. You know, there's so many approvals that are needed, there's so many steps that are involved to obtain funding, get Ohio EPA approval. There's several of them that are needed, and to, you know, get building permits and everything involved. So it's probably going to be about a 5-year study, or a 5-year period before this can come to fruition.
And that was gonna be one of my first questions when you were finished. Realistically, if we was to build a new plant, completely go to that option, what time frame you talking about finishing?
Talking, probably, most likely a new well field and a new plant, you're probably talking 8 to 10 years.
That's what I thought.
How long do you think it would take to bring our existing plant up to snuff, how do we say, to last until the new one would be built in the?
Well, I think you could do that relatively quickly. I don't see anything, we haven't talked about anything that's like major long lead item times to get in. The problem is, I think you're gonna rehab your filter, do a little rehab to your filter, and I think this is gonna happen again, and you're gonna have to do another rehab to a portion of the filters again. I don't see those things lasting very long term before they need some pretty more significant maintenance to them. Well, so if we want to talk about a new water plant, so we kind of looked at this and maybe 2 different options in the study. One, since you're only treating about 1.8 million gallons of water a day, we looked at this based on a plant capacity of 3 million gallons per day. And then we looked at it at the current rated capacity of the plant of 5 million gallons per day. No matter what you do, you design the plant, you're gonna put provisions in it so you can expand it in the future. You don't wanna landlock yourself, or you don't wanna put in the wrong size pipes where you can't expand it in the future. So even if you say you're gonna construct a 3.0 MDD plant, you're gonna make it so you can easily expand that in the future if you need to. Where you're not talking about a 5-year process to expand it. You kind of got the idea of what you need to do, and you're talking maybe a couple years to do at that point. We also looked at 3 different softening technologies to be used. There's basically 3 main ways to soften water. One's reverse osmosis. Second is ion exchange, which you see in a lot of home softening systems where people have their salt, they're putting in their bins, replacing their salt. And then the third option is lime softening. There's a lot of communities around here do Defiance, Archbold, several others in the area do lime softening. Benefits, disadvantages to each one. The main thing you look at with each of those softening technologies is the waste. All that hardness you're pulling from the water, that's all disposed of in very different ways. So kind of the phase 2 of this study would be, all right, if you decide to proceed with softening, that would be to do a deep dive into each one of those to figure out kind of your best option at that point and what the costs are. But for this one, we put costs together, we assumed you would be using some kind of softening technology in a new plan. So we also assumed to be constructing a new well field, kind of on that site. We looked at the new plan itself would be on that site itself, so the wells don't have a long place to have to pump to. So the only problem with that site is what we just looked at for the new well field. We got to bring a transmission main back into town to feed the distribution system. We did not think it was feasible to use the existing well field or make sense. We'd have to run the whole line all the way across town. Be a lot of cost for maybe some well fields that can't even be used in the future, so we didn't even really consider that an option at this point. And you can see the cost there for a new well field, a new water plant with softening. You know, you're looking $37 to $50 million at a 3 MGD plant, even more for 5 MGD. So.
Jake, I have a question.
Yep.
Not to interrupt you. Those costs for the 3 and the 5, is that with the softening?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, that includes the well field, the new plant with all the softening. Yep. This is just kind of the overview itself, again, with the new well field out here, the new water plant on site, and then a new distribution main going back into town. And that's another reason why you need a distribution system model. We really can't predict where to run a new finished water main to connect at this point without a model. Basically, we use a model that tells us where to connect to the distribution system. This length was just a guess at this point. It's just kind of to the center of town, to a large size main to connect to. So this point, this connection point would be determined in a future design and study. And here's where we see the railroad crossing. You know, one of the things Derek wanted to consider was if we do this, we're going to put in 2 lines at a time. That way we're not, you know, having to go back in the future and get another permit to go under again. So this is a summary of the alternatives with kind of an estimated lifespan until another major improvement project would be needed. I'm not saying, you know, the whole plant's going to last that long and then it's going to die. I'm just saying the lifespan until something else major needs to happen to improve the project. So basically all the rehab options, you're probably looking at 20 to 30 years before another rehab would be done. And that's just because we're relying on a lot of the infrastructure that's already there for any of the rehab options. And then the new plant, the well field itself, you know, 50 plus years on most of that equipment. And, you know, one of the things you want to do if there's a new plant, it's not construct the plant like it is now. You need to be able to construct it to replace equipment easily in the future, and not so you have to remove an entire building to replace some of the stuff. Yep. So this is the summary. Like I said, these are just the 6 options we've looked at, and most likely, whatever option you choose is going to be somewhere in between one of these. So The study was done, throw some ideas out there, give you an idea on cost for what you need to start planning for in the future. So we did recommend doing some next steps. One is really sit down and talk about them. I mean, these are big decisions. We're talking about a lot of money here. So I think you just need internally talk and think about maybe where the city wants to go with this. And really, I think no matter what, updating the hydrogeological study, which is the well field study, basically to figure out where the water is, how much water we think we can get. Completing that, completing a distribution system model, that's going to help you no matter what. That's going to help you make decisions now into the future. I think it's just a great planning tool for you. And then we take this study we do and then kind of move into a phase 2. You know, you guys get an idea of what you want to do. You know, you say, you know, the existing plant, we don't want to spend money rehabbing that. We want a new plant. Okay, let's go forward with the phase 2 of the project. That's where we get into a lot of the details on, you know, how much land do we really need? What softening technology do we want to basically utilize? What funding options are available? Where do we need to connect new transmission mains to? It's a very detailed study at that point that kind of maps out the exact direction of your system. And then, you know, we're going to start to just look at all the funding options. A lot of options out there. For a project like this, what I typically see is an Ohio EPA revolving loan fund. It's a water supply revolving loan account. It's a low interest loan. It can range from maybe 2 to 3.5% at this point as far as the loan itself. There's principal forgiveness options available with that. Principal forgiveness is Ohio EPA's term for a grant. So I don't see a lot of opportunity for grant money for this project. I know there's a lot of perception out there that there's just grant money all over the place and it's easily got. The problem is everybody has a project they want to do and they're all going for that same small pool. Now there's grant opportunities available. There's grant opportunities for abandoning wells. There's kind of the small, you know, you can kind of divide this up into smaller projects, maybe get grants that way. But there's a slew of funding availability out there that you would need to start looking at, you know, whenever you make a decision on how do you want to proceed with the city. So I think that's really all I got. Contact information's up there if you need it, or you just ask Derek. So, yeah.
I have a question.
Away.
How does the decision-making process work? The board and city council involved with this, or is it just the board?
My guess is it will be just the board.
Just the board?
Outside of the fact that council approves ultimate budgets and appropriations, that will be the council piece.
Okay.
But as we've discussed, we're in the middle of a $15 million upgrade at wastewater treatment plant.
Right.
So council is very understanding of we need to make sure we're maintaining our systems.
So it'll be a board decision?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So I have a question.
Yep.
So these recommended next steps, how long would it take to do these recommended next steps? Before let's say we decide to go with the 3 million gallons per day with the well field.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say that decision's been made. So then how long would it take to do these studies and detailed plans before the actual building would begin? Is that included in the, what, 8 to 10 years?
Yes, this would all be included. So these first two, this hydrogeological study, distribution study, these can be done in probably about 6 months. They can be done at the same time. They're totally independent of one another. The same thing with the preliminary engineering report or the general plan. And why I say general plan is that's Ohio EPA's term for preliminary engineering report if you're using their funding. Typically, that's what we end up doing is a general plan. It's just geared toward submitting it toward them for funding. This would be a pretty involved study. It would probably take approximately a year to complete. It would probably take approximately 6 months for Ohio EPA to review it and approve it. They are very long lead time and kind of an issue for getting projects across the goal line at this point with how long it takes to get them to review and approve anything. Yep.
I have 2 questions. First, obviously people can say technology is going to be advancing for this time frame, but because it's an infrastructure project, technology is probably not a non-factor. Is that true?
Well, there's going to be components in the new plant that are definitely always progressing technology-wise. Now, concrete, it's kind of been the same for a long time. You know, a building, pipeline, not a ton of advances there as far as, you know, anything different that you're looking at. Yeah, things can be built better, maybe a little different, but for the most part, when we're kind of looking at the different ways to treat water, there's definitely been a lot of advances, but a lot of the technology is the same now as it was 50 years ago.
Obviously, your estimates are a wild card because we don't know. We're currently in a trade war with the current environment.
Yep.
What are your guesses on a projected increase in cost?
So, one of the things take in consideration with Ohio EPA loans, those have BABA requirements in them anyway. Build American, buy America. Most of your products have to be American-made products anyway. A lot of those costs are already taken into account in our estimates. Most of the projects we do, there's typically a 10 to 15% adder on projects for a lot of the requirements, especially if there's a lot of steel, ductile iron pipe, and any really specialized equipment. Most of the equipment on the water side is American-made anyway. You get to the wastewater side, a lot of that stuff's made in like Germany and Switzerland and stuff. But, so who knows where we're going with the tariffs, but there's some of that already kind of built into these projects already.
Question for you, Jake. Of course, you know, we had this, we had to kind of go over, went through this thing front and backwards all weekend. There's obviously a lot to this.
Yep.
I mean, I know where I would like to go. I mean, somebody obviously 50 years ago had the foresight to build a good plant. Plus, the employees, they've taken fabulous care of that place. It got us through 50 plus years. I would like to see a new plant. But with that said, if we build a new plant, you're looking at 6, 8 years before we can really get that going.
Yeah, I'd say probably at least 8 until it's online and
Yeah.
producing water.
But with that said, with the immediate needs, we're still looking at $1/2 to $750,000 that we're gonna have to put in this place to get us to that point,
Yep.
correct?
Yeah, that's what we came up with. I would say if, you know, you come to a decision and you get an idea of where you want to go, some of that could probably be put off. Like a lot of that was replacing mechanical equipment, unit heaters, louvers, vents. So you could probably kind of reevaluate that as far as what needs replaced immediately. Some of that can probably be put off, as long as we're starting to proceed.
Okay, that's with the new plan, you're saying?
Yes.
Okay, gotcha.
Quick question, and I agree with Dick. I think what he said is true. The new plant makes most sense because it's 50 years old and it's time to move forward. How do we handle redundancy? Because that comes up in a lot of questions. You know, what happens if something happens to the solar field? Is there a backup? Do we use the existing facilities we have as a backup? Or how do we address the redundancy issue?
So when we're looking at redundancy, nowadays, everything you put in your new plant has to be an N+1, meaning I can't rely on those 3 pieces of equipment. I have to have those 3 plus an extra one. Ohio EPA does not approve anything unless you have an extra one of basically everything. So you wouldn't have an extra plant, but everything at your new plant would have an extra component to it should something go down. And then possibly, I don't want to say the 2 transmission mains completely go into your system, but that would be an option to look at to provide a kind of a redundant main from the plant to the new system itself. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay.
Again, redundancy is always a key
Yeah.
Yeah.
for everything. It's like what happens if something,
And kind of getting to what Bob said, is it my understanding that if we decide to build a new plant, we have to abandon, per DNR, EPA, our existing wells?
Yes.
Okay, so those couldn't be used as backups, those have to be abandoned.
You couldn't use it as a backup because you would need an entirely new line run out to your new plant, if you see what I mean.
Yeah,
So that would be what's keeping you from using those as a backup. That would be the only thing that's keeping you.
Okay.
You could still keep those online, but if you're not using them, well, there'd be no way to use them if you didn't install a new pipe from the well field
Correct.
to the new plant.
You could continue to use our old
No.
wells. Couldn't.
you know, unless you build new transmission line,
I
13,
understand.
17 million.
I understand.
Yeah.
so therefore, they would have to be abandoned.
Yeah,
Which-
I understand
which is
that,
a
I understand
cost.
that. But I guess what I'm looking at is the time span. I mean, if we go with a new plant, the time span of the 8 or 9 years, whatever it's gonna take before this thing will be online.
Based on discussions we had, it seems like the wells are okay for now. They've done good maintenance on them. I think they're producing well. I don't think there's any reason to think they won't last another 10 years.
If they would fail in the interim, would they have to be abandoned? I mean, I
I guess
guess
it
I don't know
depends
much
what-
about you guys are the experts here, but
I guess it would depend on what the failure would be. If you're talking a totally, the wells have an casing pipe going down. So if that thing totally collapses, it's probably done for.
it's done for.
If it's a pump, yeah, we can replace the pump.
Bob, to kind of go back to your question about redundancy in your comments, so we have 6 wells in town now, but we only run 2 or 3 at a time, so we have redundancy with the other wells. The potential new site, I think you have 6 wells on there. Again, we don't know what the flow is, but it wouldn't be likely that we would have to run all 6 every day. So there would be redundancy
Correct.
there too.
And then 2, another question, maybe it's for you, Derek. Obviously, we have to make a decision between 3 and 5. What do we,
We could, you wouldn't, it doesn't need to be between that. What I would say is if we get into this preliminary engineering report, that's where we're gonna determine what the size of the plant really needs to be.
oh, okay,
We're gonna look at historic population, well, we've done that in the past, historic population, historic water use, and then you wanna project something in the future as well. You also want to figure out how long do you want your plant to be running in a day? A lot of people don't like to operate their plant 24/7. So if you're cutting it back to 16 hours, well, then you need to make your plant a little bigger to make up for that 8 hours where the plant's not online.
Okay. Because I was just thinking, reading the study, we're on the high end, 2 point something, 1.9 on the low. I mean, I didn't know in my mind, do we need 5?
Didn't it say
So our
the
max
average
is
was like 1.3 or something like that?
Average is about 1.3.
Yeah.
Historically, you've gotten over 2 million gallons a day.
Okay.
Real quick question. Help me understand, dumb question. You said right currently today, we have one transmission line into our water plant. That's the risk that we currently have today. You said-
There's actually 2. There's one that comes from the north well field and one from the south into the plant. Coming out of the plant, there's a single transmission main to your distribution system.
Is that a risk?
It is in that it's under the building, and then you go outside and it's under some concrete pavement. If that would ever leak, crack in there, you're not producing water. You've got no water going out.
So that's a risk that you were describing earlier in
Yes.
the conversation. Okay, and that would not exist with the new plant.
I would always recommend having 2 lines coming out of the
Okay.
new plant.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question as well. If we opted for a 3, and looked at the need for Bryan to increase to a 5, what kind of timing would it take? I know you said if we build, we would have the option to add to the plant. What kind of timing would it take to go from, say, 3 to 5 if we had some necessary need for that?
Yeah, so you'd have to put together kind of the new design plans to make sure, it was kind of meet your needs going forward. Submit those to IOVA for plan approval again. You go out for bids, get it constructed. You're probably talking about a 2.5 to 3 year period.
Okay.
One thing I didn't mention, talking about all these timeframes, one of the things that's become very popular in the last 10 years in Ohio is the delivery process of a project, either using progressive design build model or a CMAR, or construction manager at risk. They've really cut down on the timeframes of projects. So I don't know if you're familiar with either one of them, but basically each one of those processes brings a contractor on board earlier in the process. The design and construction, equipment, procurement can all happen simultaneously. They cut down on the length of the project quite a bit.
So, and just for your awareness, we are now on project number 2 that's used a CMAR out of the wastewater treatment plant, and it has been an easier process than the first one we went through when I first became mayor. So you have a little more control too on who you're going to get as the builder,
Yes.
which I think is really important because we honestly did not have a good marriage with the first set of group that was working on a wastewater project for us, and learned a lot from that. So I do recommend CMAR if that's the way the board wants to go. The other question I have for you, do you guys help with securing financing, whether it's through OWDA?
Yep.
Okay. And the only thing I would caution the board, which I know building a new plant probably wouldn't be the case, but there was a community 20 years ago that built a new wastewater treatment plant, not water, and their funding went longer than the life of the plant expectancy. So they still are in debt for a plant that they're having to put money into to upgrade and remodel. So I want to make sure we're all cautious of that with these costs.
Typically, the loans are either 20 to 30 years. It's just kind of you sit down, you look at your rate structure, here's what 20 years gives us, here's what 30. The decision's got to be made at that point, whichever you go with.
That's what and I was really shocked at made a few phone calls to other folks. What amazes me is there's the grant opportunities. You'd think water's the most important thing. There's just nothing there,
Not much.
you know?
We were not able to get any for wastewater either.
That's odd to me, but
From my experience, is the fact that anytime you see in the state of Ohio, the bigger utility companies, they always bake it into the customer charge. And then the reason being the fact that maybe get lower cost because it's a certainty versus volumetric charge.
Yep.
So that might be something that we want to consider as a board, that we might look at a customer charge versus volumetric charge in our conversations.
a lot to digest.
Yeah, that was gonna be the next
Yeah, I was gonna
point.
say.
I'm available to come back again. I know there's a lot to look at here. I'm available, you know, if there's other times to meet, if phone calls, virtual meetings, you know,
Yeah.
I'm happy to talk about it.
I'm happy you came in to explain it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
Very informative.
Yeah.
Much appreciated.
And I actually would like to take a moment and compliment Derek, Jimmy, Chad. When we had our all-night date out at the water treatment plant 2 years ago, a lot of these things that are in the study, they were identifying as things that they knew were, you know, the cracks underneath the well and some of those things. They know what their plant is capable of. They know where the deficiencies are. So they're coming out in a study by a professional engineer, and I just want to compliment your crew for having that awareness.
And we're probably gonna be asking you guys some brutal questions, Jimmy and Chad. I mean, I've already had conversations with you guys, and especially Chad. Yeah. So I'm gonna be asking you guys a lot of questions, and be straight up. You ain't gonna lose your job. Say what's on your mind, right?
It's the only way I know how to be.
Yeah. But I kind of know where my mind's going. I just want to do my due diligence, make sure I'm thinking the right way. Yeah, appreciate that, Jake, your time.
Yeah, great.
It's very well done, thank you.
Yeah,
Lot to think about.
Thank you.
thank you.
Next on the agenda is a motion to approve a streetlight petition. Derek. Oh, yeah.
Sorry, you guys have a streetlight petition request on Chester Court. It's off of Portland Street, there are two cul-de-sacs, this would be the south cul-de-sac, I believe. There's no light there. So the residents there came together and signed the petition. It went to me, I signed it, went to the police department, they okayed it. Bryan Whelan, Derek, now it's to the board for final approval. And we take all streetlight requests for free service for the next approve. So that's what's in front of me. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
I do have a question. I was thinking about that when I was looking at this. I went online and I saw two different spellings for the name of the street. Somebody,
Don't ask me.
I don't know, read it and all these realtor places might have it wrong spelling, but actually I was looking at this and I was wondering, is the street light, I see you've got the circle for the location. Is that going to point
I think it's like St.
towards the
Pat's.
south
Where's St. Francis?
for all the houses to the south of Charter Drive? Or-
The street lights project forward for the type of light that you use.
Yeah.
So it's gonna more
Yep, so this
project
is
on the
This is
cul-de-sac, not behind to the
First one house.
Not behind, that's what I wondered.
Yeah,
And
because these are street lights, they're not security lights, so
Yeah.
the light is now with LED, when they build these fixtures, you can project that light on more area for street light.
that's what I wondered, because there's like 7 houses And I wondered if all 7 would benefit from that lighting, or whether it would cut off and just the 3 along that drive would benefit, so.
And I've laid it out where we've had existing facilities to feed them. So it's most easiest for us to plow a feed to a light, not having to jump through a lot of hoops to get power there to it. So I gave them the 2 options of the north and the south side. You know, that's how it kind of, it was determined what side we would go with. So.
That makes sense where you've got it located to me. Thanks.
Any more questions on that? If not, may I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
I'll second.
Dick,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Annette,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Karen.
Yes.
Thanks, Al. Next on the agenda is a resolution to authorize an agreement for an electric study. Pat, will you please number and read?
This is resolution number 12, 2025, authorizes Director of Utilities to enter into an agreement with N Engineering LLC for an electric system study.
In the 2025 electric department budget, there is funding for this study. It's split between electric distribution and the power plant. This study will update the electric system model. It provides essential analysis, including load flow, short circuiting, particular device coordination, and arc flash assessments. Another big portion of this study is a detailed layout of a 10-year plan for infrastructure improvements. The BMU staff, we reviewed 3 proposals, and we determined that EN Engineering, which is formerly Spectrum Engineering, provided the most comprehensive and cost-effective response for our needs. The total cost of this study, $194,978, and this does align with the 2025 budget, which included appropriations of $200,000. And just for history, the last study was completed in 2014, and that was done by Spectrum Engineering as well. So I don't know if Al or Jim have any details you want to add about it, but we would request your approval.
I know back in 2015, when we did the study, the model was one of the big things that we had done. When we talk the water system, you know, they talk about model. This is our model for the electric. It was done in 2015. Updating that, you know, we looked at all 300 kVA and above transformer sizes. So, and all the wiring that goes to that, all of our network that we have in town was all modeled out, you know, as far as flow, amps, and voltages and things like that are all figured into this. We want to get all the 3-phase stuff done with this one, so we're able to capture all of our, like 300 and below, plus everything that's been changed in the last 10 years, you know, updated, along with all of our infrastructure upgrades that we've done with getting rid of Daggett substation, you know, the industrial park sub, Titan Tire substation, the power plant, that all came together to, you know, here recently. You know, so that's stuff that I know we've been talking about since I've started, you know, a lot of that stuff. It's pretty nice to see it all kind of coming to an end there, but I guess we can't stop improving our systems, and we've got to keep on to the next 10 years, you know, what's going to happen, because you don't want to fall behind, you know, put yourself in a bad situation.
I have a question for Mr. Corso. I don't want to waste your time being here, my friend. I read through it, and the light plant's going to be pretty extensively looked at, especially the generation units. What kind of things you're looking at? Because I saw a thing called a red flag, and I'm not sure what that means.
Where were you reading this at?
Yeah, 'cause when I read through, there was the review and everything, they mentioned red flag type of things. I'm not sure what a red flag means. Is that something that is,
The only thing I can think of, it's probably all of the secondary side of things that, probably the Milford, I would think.
Well, yeah, and-
All the 4 kV stuff.
I guess that's one thing that I did bring up about it was, we've talked forever about what we need to do at Lawrence to boost our capacity there. But I brought up about, well, what about the whole generation and the switchgear and everything that's inside the power plant? Where the Norberg is, all that switchgear is the same year, 1948. 1963 is all the stuff's over at the GE. What if, do we need to look at what kind of generators we have? What are they seeing other places as far as storage? So far, what I've gotten information on storage has been kind of pathetic as far as being able to actually hold the power grid up for more than a few minutes. Most of what they're doing in storage for battery is just doing voltage regulation, which means if there's a dip, it holds it up for a minute until the power comes right back.
Sure.
And then the other thing is frequency regulation. We don't need any of that. We want to generate for peak shaving in order to continue to save money for our community here. And that was one of my questions to their business development guy was, what is the future of storage and generation? Do we need to look at different kind of generators than we have that would be more cost effective and provide long-term, maybe lower maintenance, easier startability, maybe more automation on them so that they can be run remotely and then, just monitored even with this SCADA system completely, to where they would then send out alarms if something happened a little bit. But then there would be enough redundancy so that we would not miss a peak. Because as we can see, as the capacity and transmission costs are going up, that's becoming a lot more important from a cost standpoint.
Plus, you guys are required to run more frequently in the winter months than you are probably historically.
Well, that's the other thing is with the growth of the grid, is there going to be a requirement in the future to run just to relieve it even when it's not necessarily a peak.
Right. Yeah, like the first week in January, I was shocked that you guys ran, and it wasn't a peak day.
No, well, once again, until you hit a really good high that you don't think can be beat, you're just chasing that carrot that you don't know where it is. I mean, just like in 2022, once we hit that real high one in December, well, anything that's a gigawatt or lower, we don't really have to worry about. The one we hit in January 10th or something like that was 23.7, historic number.
Yeah.
Historic number for transmission. So now during the whole summer, just like in 2022 or 2023, I ran like 5 or 6 times in the summer because I didn't have to chase the transmission. I just had to worry about the capacity part.
Right.
And that may be the summer, but what worries me is we're still doing it with 1971 equipment. Even though we upgraded to PLCs and stuff, the rest of the infrastructure, just like what Al said about, the whole distribution infrastructures, we want to continue to improve that so that we never get behind, the 8 ball to say. And so that's what I brought up was about all that switchgear in the power plant. I know there was one part that we stole off of something we found in the basement to fix some of the switchgear over on the GE one day. So what about the exciter and those types of things that are Norberg's using, 1948 stuff? And then what happens to any kind of regulations in the future that even the water guy was talking about when it comes to diesel catalyst? And I know that just recently got relieved again, but that doesn't mean it's not going to tighten up in 4 years again, Everything is pretty volatile without having a standard regulation out there. Did I answer your question, or did I just go, I start rambling about everything?
I was going to say, Dick, you had questions, yeah?
No, I get it, because I came from there,
Yeah.
but,
Now, like I said, I was reading through the study, and I saw the generation, and
That's the
obviously.
red flag, is that we're using
Yeah,
very.
and the reason being is because, $8 to $10 million are because of our generation capacity. So that to
This year's
me,
gonna hit $10 million pretty easily.
and that's to me was like, that's pretty, I mean, that has to be a high priority And then I saw that it was in part of your electric study, and I said, that was awesome to see that. So that's a question I had, was like, some of the things that came through, exactly what you described.
Yeah, we even have, I even conduct clean Fridays, over there. Dick knows about it, because the cleaner we keep the plant, it doesn't get collected on any of, because electricity has that magnetic field, and that dust will collect right to it. So we try to keep the plant as dust-free as possible so that it doesn't collect on that old stuff and causes an issue someday.
We've been lucky, I mean, just like the water plant. We've just taken extremely good care of both places.
But yeah, I know that Chad and Jimmy and when Derek was over there, everybody monitored everything really, really well, GT1 had a leak on that shaft between the combustors and the gearbox. And we looked at it and took it apart and got the leak. I mean, if we see a drip, we start addressing it.
Yeah.
Just for that reason. And plus, not only that, but you lose a barrel of oil, you lose $1,500 right now.
Oh, yeah.
And 55 gallons of it. So it really, you really have to pay attention to that.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Yeah, the questions.
Good?
Anything else? May I have a motion to approve resolution number 12, please?
I'll make a motion.
Second. Bob?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Annette?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Dick?
Yes.
Next on the agenda is to effect the semi-monthly disbursements, so pay the bills. May I have a motion to pay the bills, please?
I'd like to make a motion. We pay the bills?
Karen?
Yes.
Dick?
Yes.
Annette?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Next on the agenda is comments from BK staff. I'll start with Derek, please.
Just a couple quick updates for you. Andrew and Adrian, water treatment plant operators, they recently attended an 8-hour backflow course in Lima. It's required to attend every 2 years. That includes both a written and a hands-on test to remain certified, so congratulations to those two. We also sent 3 linemen, I believe Shane, Brandon, and Rayner, to Hillsdale, Michigan. At the Hillsdale Electric Department, they had some hot stick equipment and grounding technique training, so it provided some good hands-on experience. Also over at the power plant, they did some protective relay training with EN Engineering, both at the power plant and also at the Cherry Street substation, bringing that up online. So it's some hands-on live training that proved to be pretty valuable. Also, March 21st, BMU and city employees, they participated in the Williams County Board of DD's Rock Your Socks photo contest. And this was to raise awareness and celebrate individuals with Down syndrome. I'm happy to share that BMU and the city's photo won the contest. So a big thank you to all the employees who participated and helped support a meaningful cause. Also, just want to take a moment and thank the electric department, Al and Adam and the whole team. They've spent the last several days up in Montpelier working the storm damage. It's been some challenging conditions for them, but they really play a big part in working with AMT and First Energy and getting Wheel and Chase back online, so certainly appreciate their efforts. And also want to express our gratitude to Wheel and Chase for being so understanding and patient while the service was being restored. So, thank you.
Well, I think Derek covered most of it, but I want to thank the electric department. Those straight line winds that hit Montpelier were pretty devastating for that community, and always grateful for mutual aid contracts and the collaboration that we provide, but really proud of you guys. I know you've been working really hard for many hours a day in some tough conditions, and we'll cross our fingers that Wednesday is nothing.
Pat, do you have anything?
Not tonight, thank you.
Al, anything more?
Would you like me to see where we're at with our storm restoration up in Montpelier? We had actually 6 transmission poles that were on the JV4 line. One of them was between County Road G and H, which I don't believe we've got to yet. I broke the top of the pole off, but it's being held up by the phases. We had a couple poles that are on the tap that goes to Mount Pillier. That's the backup feed from First Energy, our typical backup feed. We had 2 poles there that got replaced yesterday by other crews other than Bryan and Mount Pillier. And then north of 107, we had three poles down from there. And of course, that secondary feed from Mount Pillier and it heads north, that's like the feed that never can go out because that's where Bryan and Mount Pillier's feed comes together. So you either feed it from Bryan or Mount Pillier. Well, that was down, so we had to come up with an alternate way to feed on the EMT line from Pioneer was there. They did a study. We found that was doable, with the metering and things like that. So we were able to get that worked through, and them on that gave us more to set back and allow us to do what we need to do, on these poles that are broken. Go ahead.
Your crew was on Channel 13 ABC News.
Oh, really?
Yep, I saw today at noon, the noon report. So, and it had BMU, big, gigantic, and it filled up my screen, basically. So
Right.
it was a great opportunity for show that, like you said.
Well, we got 3 of those poles set, and today we're transferring the wires from the ground to the poles and getting that kind of back in order. And we're hoping to get that done today because of the rain and you guys are all talking about coming, tomorrow. So it's already a mud bog there, so it's not, it wouldn't make things any better. The one pole that we do have, we can get from the road, basically, so. But that's where they're at, so.
Thanks for
Okay,
your
thanks,
answers.
Al.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jim, you have anything? Chad?
You're all more than welcome to come to the water plant, and I can tour you through those who haven't been there yet, anytime.
I took advantage of that opportunity. You gotta get fresher donuts.
Oh, Jim gets meeks.
Well, Derek allows me to run down there, I'll get those
Well,
too.
John's are
Buzz
fine
by.
too. John's are fine day up.
They were a little tough. I mean, they were.
Chad, you would have thought a board member would have bought fresh
Oh, well,
donuts.
that's an opportunity.
There's your lesson.
Come
I
on,
shouldn't say,
Bob.
you're right, Dick, I should have been conscious of that.
Mr. Metz? Paper? You have anything to add? Paper? You have any questions? Karen?
Yes. I'm happy about this electric study, and actually, I'm glad we're using the same company, other different name, but, because they've done it before, and they have that history. They can see where the weakest links are by age and because of their history. And I just think that's just very important that we keep up doing this every 10 years to know what we need to do with our system, where we need to focus the money to make repairs and keep everything running so that we don't lose power no matter what. I know storms are getting worse. This can kind of point out things that maybe to take consideration in for protection in case, shift of the storms or, something. You never know what can be flagged and what we need to deal with. So I just think I'm very happy about this going forward. I'm happy about the water study too and what that's pointed out for us. And I know we thought about it for a couple of years and talked about what could possibly be coming up. Now we know it's in front of us now. Now we can discuss options and what we need to do. I'm happy about the training going on. I did like the report about the going live at the Cherry Street substation. how they got to see the system in work, point out anything that needed to be addressed. That is great, good software there, and live notifications and resolutions that the guys could see online right at that time.
They actually had the software incorrect and had to change it right there in front of them, so.
And that's
So,
fantastic.
It really helped out.
Yeah, I really like that. The backflow and the certifications, keeping up with that at the water treatment, hot stick and grounding, very important as well. And I think that's probably all. Thanks for sending the guys up from mutual aid and helping out up in Montpelier. So. Oh, and I wanted to point out one other thing. At the Wedco luncheon, Derek,
Our hero.
our director, Derek, did receive an award. He was named most beneficial and helpful Wedco member. So, wow.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
I heard it was the GOAT award.
Yes, he did win an award for
The
that.
GOAT award.
So, that's all I have.
Dick, you have anything?
I'd like to thank Jake from Jones and Henry. I've been kind of absorbed in this water thing, and I was really confused about some things, but you straightened me out and answered the questions, and I appreciate that. Hats off to the electric guys. As usual, they jump right on things and get her done. That's all I have.
Nothing other than, that hadn't already been said, other than looks like the board's got work to do.
Yeah. Derek, I hope you show that award you got. It's kind of humorous, except for, it looks like a goat. But it's a great achievement, well deserved, well deserved. I agree with Dick. The water study is going to be probably one of the most important things of probably in our lifetime that we'll have an opportunity to contribute into making a decision. I've always looked at long-term, and I think that there's some nice options there, but again, like I said before, I think when you're looking from 1972 to where we're at today, that's a tribute to the people that we had that maintained that, so I'm very happy with that. So with that, I'll throw it over.
Well, I'd like to say, kind of reiterate, Andrew and Adrian, congratulations on passing your backflow testing, the training that's going on, and the people that we have sent. All of that stuff is really important to keep up on. Of course, congratulations to everyone for the rocking their socks. I think that's pretty cool. I've not seen that picture, so maybe we can put it on Facebook or something.
Oh, it's on Facebook.
Is it on Facebook?
I always send it to you.
You all look very happy in that picture.
And hats off to the electric department for being able to respond very quickly to such an event. And then I have one other thing to add other than congrats to Derek, but congrats to the school for groundbreaking for the new building.
Very exciting day yesterday.
Yeah.
I should have added that, but I
And the
feel.
governor was there.
The governor and the lieutenant governor were there.
That's pretty awesome.
So,
Where'd you take them out for lunch?
They weren't here for lunch. It was a
Oh.
very quick, like 1
They
hour
fly
of their
in?
time. They flew in and flew out.
That's amazing.
I don't think I have anything more to add. If there are no more comments, we will adjourn the meeting. Thank you.
So you need a
Can I have a motion to adjourn the meeting, please?
Second.
Dick?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Annette?
Yes.
Jim?
Yep.
Karen?
Yes.
Meeting adjourned.